Good morning to all my friends and family, and welcome to Jim's 5 a.m. club. I'm down here at Martin Place, just above from the cenotaph, and we've just witnessed the 2021 Anzac Day dawn service, which started at 4:30 and now it's 5:30, so it's concluded. It was a very, very moving service, and I always love whenever I get an opportunity to come down to the city to experience this wonderful event. It is quite eerie, especially the minute silence when you've got a few thousand people, I'd imagine, down here, all in silence, and all you can hear is just the humming of the air conditioning of the buildings around us. But it's something that I recommend that everybody tries at least once in their lifetimes, to come and be part of the dawn service. And it is quite emotional. I did have some tears, I must admit, when I heard God Save the Queen. It was the national anthem. We were reminded it was a national anthem that the Anzacs grew up with and fought under. And it was also the national anthem that I grew up with. It was the national anthem of Australia till 1985, for those who are not aware. So very, very powerful. And it was also quite amazing just to have the hymns being sung, and just a reflection, what would Australia be like? What would our society be like if it wasn't for our Christian beliefs? Could you imagine an atheist society trying to remember those who have passed away? It would be a bit awkward, and it would be a bit empty, I would imagine. Anyway, on this solemn day, I want to basically take us through a book summary. Now that I've got some time here, I rode in on my motorbike. It was pretty cold this morning, but I want to take us through a book summary entitled "I Wear the Black Hat" by an author named Chuck Klosterman. And it's an appropriate sort of book summary for an event like today. The author kicks off the book with a quote where he says that the villain is the person who knows the most but does the least. How true is that? How many times have we been surrounded by people who know a lot, can solve a lot of problems, but don't do anything in terms of solving and helping those around them? And the author then goes on to talk about a thing called the veil of ignorance. So he says that in terms of good and bad, good and evil, it's really, really hard to define what it is, because different environments, different societies have different definitions. So one of the points that he makes is, do the veil of ignorance exercise. It's an exercise that you can do to show yourself that what you think is good and bad, and in many ways is entirely made up. So depending on where you're born and how you're brought up, you will have different definitions on what is good and what is bad. And that's true. Now, how often do we go away on holidays, or how often do we go to school, or do we go to events, or do we meet people who do things that we say to ourselves, no, that's just bloody wrong, or that's just inconsiderate or inconvenient. And yet, when you sit and think about it and you do the veil of ignorance exercise, and you look back and you say, well, maybe they grew up differently. Maybe they grew up in a different environment. Maybe they grew up with a different culture. Our definition of what is good and bad is based on our religion, on our families, on the people who we grew up with, in societies, the environments we grew up in. So what your view on what is good and bad depends on your environment. So that's why it's important, according to the author, to be able to benchmark and baseline your values, your principles against those from different cultures, from different nations, from different backgrounds, because you will find a common thread. There are some common threads in terms of principles and values which are considered to be good and bad. But the important thing to understand is that it is impossible, it is absolutely impossible to design a perfect society. So be very, very careful with what you label and how you label it in terms of it being good and bad, because it's really complex and really complicated. So something to contemplate, something to think about, especially on a day like today, on a day where we remember those who have fallen, those who have fought in battles, those who have given the ultimate sacrifice. And the other thing that the author talks about is that humans don't like change. So because we naturally don't like change and we're wired for a life that we're comfortable with and how we've grown up, we tend to hate those who force change upon us. And the last formal point to come from this book is we talk about villains, and the author talks about the more human a villain seems, the more evil you think they are, even though that others may be far worse than them. So what he's suggesting, or what they're suggesting, is that there are a number of leaders throughout the world who are deemed to be villains. We've got Hitler, we've got Stalin, and we've got Mao. Under Hitler, 20 million people were killed. Under Stalin, 26, and under Mao, 60 million. But because we don't know much about Mao, because we don't relate to him in any way, then it's hard to hate him or to consider him to be an evil villain worse than Hitler and Stalin, because we know little of him and we know little of his humanity. So it just goes to show that the more you know about somebody, and I think we've learned that familiarity breeds contempt. It also is the same when it comes to villains and to evil people. So there you go. I think I'll leave it there on this cold, cold morning, this Anzac Day 2021, where I made a decision to get up early and come down to the city, ride my motorbike in the cold. But to be here and experience this event is something which is special and something that I recommend to each and every person. I've been to a number of dawn services over the years, but today is a special event, especially given that last year we had COVID-19 and we couldn't come down to experience it and to celebrate it. So I'll head down to the cenotaph now and see what else we can come up with and experience and be part of. But what I'll do now is I'll go back, get on my bike, head home and get ready to celebrate Palm Sunday. It's Palm Sunday for the Greek Orthodox. How beautiful are those bagpipes. Just one of those things which just tug at your heartstrings. Yeah, well, I'll come down a little bit closer and video the pipers. Absolutely beautiful. How can you not have a tear in your eye with that lament? Anyway, thank you very much for joining me on Jim's 5am Club. We'll finish off with that positive affirmation. I'm alive, I am well, and I feel absolutely great. To my friends and family, stay connected, stay relevant, stay reasonable, and let's respect and remember the sacrifice that those have done on our behalf. We've got to keep it space.
It's thinned out a bit. I'll see if I can get it. Okay.
Great light, eh?
Oh, great.
All I can say is, get the chrono me here. May we all be down here next year as well, in a freer society, and remember those who gave everything so that we can have everything. Bye for now, and we'll chat again.